29-year-old trans man. While teaching in rural communities, he met a young man whose confidence in his own gender identity caused Chase to realize that perhaps he was not living a life of integrity. Assigned female at birth, this is never fit with how Chase has experienced himself. As such, he's in the process of gender transitioning. He is a spoken word performer and presenter who speaks with the majesty of a unicorn and the elegance of a ninja. Viewing tolerance as failure, Chase is an advocate for love.
I need to be more careful about writing my bios. So I see some new faces here tonight, which is great, because I always love meeting new people, because upon first meeting, I get to do a lovely dance with them. And I call it the Pronoun Dance. And the steps are as follows. They assume my gender identity and choose a pronoun for me, referring to me as she or he, depending on how they experience me. Sometimes the dance involves multiple partners, and one of them she's me, while the other one he's me. This dance is particular levels of confusing fun for everybody. My absolute favorite dance, though, the uncomfortable tango of my life, is that awkward dance around using no pronouns at all and asking me a series of questions with the objective of ascertaining whether I am an estrogen or testosterone-based organism. Now, I've done this dance my whole life. However, most of my dancing partners have rarely practiced their steps, and as such, I'm a much better dancer than they. And so usually it resembles some version of this. What's your name? Blodgett. Gender neutral, no help. Oh, so you play hockey. In what league? Oh, you know, the local rec league here in town. Vague, no help. So are you single? Nope, I have a partner. No clue, no gender references. And so I know what they're doing, and I do not give them the information they seek. I do this because I know that they're attempting to gather information that, one, is not necessary for them to know, and two, allows them to feel like a good person because they can save face by not asking me directly. Because if they ask me directly what my gender is, I might ask them why it matters. Moreover, I do not provide clarity because there is value in them asking me directly. Because if they ask me directly, they will have to acknowledge in their own heart what their pressing need to know reveals about their character and how they treat other people. And I don't want to deny them this delightful opportunity for self-reflection. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I also do it because it's a coping strategy. Because I've spent my life having to defend myself and my gender identity. Because I've ran for my life on more than one occasion. And because it can be a heavy burden some days. So I play with it and have fun with it and challenge people with it. Because doing this makes those heavy days easier. 43% of trans-identified persons attempt suicide, according to the PFLAG. I was once ID'd at a party because a group of men had such a hard time figuring out my gender, and they could no longer stand not knowing. Those are the kinds of experiences that threaten my dignity as a human being. Those are the kind of experiences that accumulate on the heavy days. This is why I choose to play with it, to have fun with it, to delight in others' awkwardness as they ask me a series of questions trying to discern my gender. This is why I practice my steps. And for the new people here tonight, I will save you the dance. I self-identify as a trans man and request that you use male pronouns, he and him, when referring to me. As you've probably ascertained by now, I'm with you tonight I am with you tonight to explore gender identity. I will also take some time to highlight some social justice matters relating to gender, such as access to medical treatment, as well as discuss some positive movements that's currently happening in the Yukon. So gender identity is one's internal, personal sense of being a man or a woman. So as not to confuse gender with sexual orientation is who you go to bed with. Gender is who you go to bed as. Now you just heard me use the term trans, and you're going to hear me use it throughout my talk. I use trans with an asterisk rather than saying transgender or transsexual, because there's over 150 different genders known that are not male or female. Trans with an asterisk is an umbrella term that refers to all the identities within the gender identity spectrum. Now the origins behind the asterisk, as I understand it, is a bit computer geeky, which I know nothing about. So when you add an asterisk to the end of a search term, you're telling the computer to search for what you typed, plus any characters after. For example, if you type that into Google, you'd probably come up with banana, banjo, bandito, band-aid. So the context in which I use trans with the asterisk is encompassing, so transgender, transqueer, transsexual, all-inclusive. And for those who aren't familiar, trans can be loosely understood as people who have a different self-identity than their biological sex. So for trans people, their birth-assigned sex and their own internal sense of gender identity do not match. Conversely, cisgender is people who have a self-identity that is in accordance with their biological sex. So I am basically a female-bodied man, 29 years with my chest, and when I look down and see cleavage, I'm still shocked every single time. Genetically, I am, and I always will be, chromosomally XX, and I was assigned female at birth based on this. This is usually where people in religion start to get excited. I self-identify as a man and use male pronouns, he and him, and am physically a female. Wait, what? I am in the process of transitioning. I'm 2 weeks and 1 day on hormone replacement therapy as of today, which essentially means I inject myself in the butt with testosterone, or T, every 2 weeks. My doctor told me to hold the needle like a dart. Just jab it in there. So we call it playing bum darts. Yeah. Because as if it wasn't fun enough the first time, I get to go through puberty a second time at age 29. Can't wait for the voice cracks. It's going to be great. Medically, what this looks like is, well, that's a great question, actually. One of the challenges I have at the moment is that unlike most of Canada, Yukon lacks a policy on trans individuals, which is to say that there appears to be no information, no requirements to access treatment, and no clarity on funding treatment. The challenge is that most of my services will be provided through British Columbia if I can access services at all. Now, BC has rigorous standards that involve 1 to 2 years of psychological therapy and having lived in your preferred gender fully for 1 to 2 years. Now, the technical term is preferred gender. It's up for debate, but I'm just going to use it for the sake of argument. It also involves hormone readiness assessments, gender identity disorder or gender dysphoria diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and it's long and comprehensive depending on what treatment you want. Currently, I don't actually know what I need to do, which is kind of alarming from a medical standpoint. And there seems to be nobody to pose this question to. Am I required to meet the BC standards to access care? I had an appointment with an endocrinologist who was going to determine if I was a suitable candidate for hormones. And I thought I needed a hormone readiness assessment before I could start. After 10 minutes in a Skype conversation, he wrote me a prescription for testosterone and emailed it to me, and now I'm on testosterone. And I didn't really complain because I got what I wanted, but at the same time it was like, this doesn't feel quite right. Shouldn't I have had this? And well, we don't really need it because in Yukon, I don't have to meet any requirements to access health. But in BC, I do. It's very confusing. One of the frustrating parts of the lack of awareness on the Yukon's part, aside from the conflicting information, is just the total lack of any information. So about 12 hours before I was scheduled to start my first testosterone shot, I was with my therapist, and she goes, "So did you decide to save any of your eggs?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? These 3 months ago." And she's like, "No, like your eggs. We struggle with how to refer to things too. Sensitive. And I was like, what? And she's like, well, the testosterone makes you infertile, and often trans people choose to take some eggs, have them frozen, so that in the future, if they ever want to have a biological child, they can." Now, I don't know that I could have afforded this option, to be perfectly honest, but I would have liked to have had the opportunity to discuss it in detail and to consider it more than 12 hours before my first shot. Another sticky situation I kind of have on the go right now is about top surgery, which I'm on an 18 to 22 month wait list for. Now this surgery is a double mastectomy with a nipple graft and has male contours reconstructed into your chest. When we first inquired on a generic level, we were told that it was cosmetic surgery. So the same thing as if a woman wanted a breast enhancement, the government was treating them as the same. We did get me on the wait list, and at present I don't know if Insured Health is going to cover it or not, and we won't know if they cover the travel either, and Insured Health doesn't make any decisions until you have a scheduled appointment, which means I'm going to be on this list for up to 2 years, finally get the appointment scheduled, and then I'm going to find out if Insured Health is going to support me or not. And one of my deepest fears about this is that I'm going to wait 2 years, finally have the appointment and the opportunity to have the surgery, and I'm going to find out that the government's going to refuse to access treatment, and I'm going to enter into negotiations with them that will put me back on the wait list for another 2 years. Forcing me to wait the additional years while we negotiate why they support all known treatments for every disorder listed in the DSM except for gender dysphoria, because it is listed in the DSM. So why the government can pick and choose to treat schizophrenia and not gender dysphoria is beyond me. So as you can see, accessing medical treatment is full of challenges, and I have a super supportive doctor who's doing the best that she can. And my psychologist is a big help too, but there's a lot of questions. And while I wait for surgery, I live as male. So I decided, with the support of my team, to follow the BC requirements for surgery just to play it safe, so that if I get 2 months down or 2 years in and qualify for surgery, they can't come back and say, well, you haven't been living in your preferred gender. So we're just going to do that. And now that I'm on testosterone, I'll begin to start appearing more and more physically male. Now the catch with that is that I will be male and I have a GH cup size, which isn't super apparent because I use a binder, which is a medical chest compression device for post-surgeries. But that poses challenges like, which bathroom do I use when I have a beard and a GH cup size? So the very nature, the wait time and requirements to be fully living in all aspects of your life, that's the BC standards, in all aspects of your life you have to be living as your preferred gender to qualify. This includes bathrooms, makes it unnecessarily hard during a transition time that's already challenging enough. And what I really want is what everybody else wants, which is just a safe place to relieve myself. The requirements that I do so in a male bathroom before allowing me access to chest surgery puts me in potentially unsafe situations, and that causes me a bit of anxiety. But there's a reference term, it's called the tranny bladder, where you can just hold it and hold it and hold it, and I'm good at that. Coming out as trans in the Yukon has been a beautiful experience for me socially. I was received and continue to be received with just total love and support. However, when you come out as trans in the Yukon, there isn't much of a community to step into. Most trans Yukoners move to BC, get the residency in 3 months, and then transition there. I refuse to do that because this is my community and this is my home.